Food. Joe phoned me from the town. Guess what? I've got the job. Great. Well, it's not really. It wasn't even a proper interview. It obviously doesn't matter what you're like when you're a cleaner. Still, I bet you're going to be the best ever, squeakiest, cleanest cleaner they've ever had, I said. The start of a whole new career, said Joe. Do you think I'll make it to the champion floor cleaning polish trials? You bet. So you'd better get into training quick. When do you start? Tomorrow, I heard Joe gulp. At 6 in the morning. Oh, Charlie, I must be mad. I could claim income support and lie in bed till noon. Still, you don't have to fib to grandma anymore. You really have got a job. I can just imagine what she'll say when she finds out I'm a cleaner. No, you're not a cleaner. You're a state-of-the-floor supervisor, right? You're a sweet kid, Charlie. I was a snotty kid earlier. You coming home then? I'm starving. Yes, I've just got to buy something for tea. I hoped I might get staff discount at the supermarket, but that's only for the woman working the tills. Get some red treats for a bedroom picnic to celebrate your job. Hey, we're economizing. Very cheap red treats. Do you think baked beans could be called red? Just get some red plums for pudding, or red apples, and a block of raspberry ripple ice cream. Yes, and what about the strawberry gâteau? I think that's coming it a bit, old girl. Beans, plums, and ice cream. That'll do. I'll be home soon then. You get the trays ready. I pattered about the kitchen thinking we really should have a cake to celebrate properly. I remembered this ancient packet of cakes mix I'd won on a tombola at a school fete donkeys years ago. I had to poke around the kitchen cupboard and found it crumbled behind some tins of soup. Joe didn't go in for making cakes, and the only sort I'd ever made were pretend pink dough ones when I was a little kid. But this packet sort looked a doddle. You just had to add an egg. I found one egg in a box at the back of the fridge. I thought back to when we'd last had the scrambled eggs, and it was only about a fortnight ago, so it should be alright. I tipped the contents of the cake mix packet into a bowl, switched the eggs around until it was all sticky, scooped a lot into the tin, and shoved it into the oven. Easy peasy, simple pimple. What's that lovely smell? Said Joe when she came in the door. A surprise. Hey, congratulations. I've got 2 jobs. I phoned the number where they want someone to look after the little boy as well as do a bit of cleaning. That's in the afternoon, so it'd be easy to fit that in too. Where are you going to look after this little boy then? Not around here, I hope, I said. I don't want him messing up all my stuff. He sounds a nice, sensible little boy, though he's very shy. I spoke to him on the phone, and his dad sounds nice too, though ever so sad. His wife left and he's trying to cope on his own. We cope fine on our own, I said. Look, you're a cleaner now. Why don't you just stick to cleaning jobs? You don't want to be a nanny too. It's £75 a week. That's not bad. If I could find just one more job like that to fit in mid-morning, then we'd be laughing, said Joe. Hey, is your surprise all right? It's not burning, is it? It had burnt just a little bit, but only around the edges. I decided to cut them off, and then I went on cutting and trimming, turning the round sponge into 2 letters, a big J and a small round circle for the O. We didn't have any icing, so I smeared some strawberry jam on the top and then studded both letters with Smarties. That looks wonderful, said Joe. Hey, you're really good at this. I don't want to sound disgustingly boastful, but it really wasn't bad for a first attempt. I added a line to my work advert. Makes excellent cakes. I didn't show Joe my advert. I wanted to surprise her. But when I took my advert into the news agents and asked Mr. Raj to put it in the window, he shook his head. You can't work. You're just a little girl, he said. Girls work just as well as boys. Better, I said indignantly. It's not because you're a girl. You're too young. You couldn't do any proper work. Yes, I could. Look, 100 years ago, I could work full-time as someone's servant. I could be scrubbing all day. I'm doing this project about it for school, see? That's what you should be doing at your age, concentrating on your schoolwork. You don't get paid for doing schoolwork. You kids, just wanting money, money, money. What do you want? A bike, rollerblades, a computer? My kids want all these things. Nag, nag, nag. If the boy don't turn up to deliver the newspapers and I ask my boy to help me out, then it's how much money will you pay me? I'll do a newspaper round, I said. You can't, you're too little. It's against the law, see? Times have moved on since your history project. Kids aren't allowed to work. I could see I was wasting my time. I tried the news agents down in the town, but he said the same. So I decided to use my initiative. I'm quite good at that. I spent most of my spare cash for photocopying my advert, and then I went around sticking them through people's letterboxes in our flats, and the flats over the road and half the houses down the street. I'd put my phone number, so I sat by the phone and waited, and waited, and waited. What's up with you? Said Joe. Nothing. Come on, are you waiting for a phone call? I might be. Don't play games with me, Charlie. I'm feeling too dopey to work it out, said Joe, yawning. She'd started her job at the supermarket and was finding it an awful struggle to get out of bed at 5. Look, why don't you go to bed now? Get a really early night. You look exhausted, I said. Who is it who's going to phone? Joe's sleepy eyes suddenly sparkled. Hey, it's a boy. What? You're waiting for some boy to phone you? I am not. Yes, you are. You've got a boyfriend, said Joe, giggling. Don't be so stupid. I hate boys. So you say. I know. What's his name? The one you keep going on about at school. The one you sit next to. Jamie Edwards? You have to be joking. I can't stick him. Sitting next to him is driving me absolutely crazy. I couldn't believe Joe could be so crackers. I truly detested that Jamie. He was just the most annoying person in the whole world to have to sit next to. He waved his hand in the air so often to answer Miss Beckworth's questions that I was in a permanent breeze. And every time he got the answer right, which was nearly flipping always, he gave this smug, satisfied little nod as if to say, see, what a super intelligent smarty boots I am. I hated the way when Miss Beckworth said us some work he'd start straight away, his posh fountain pen bobbing up and down as he wrote, while the rest of us were still scratching our heads and rolling our chins and looking at our watches to see how long it was till playtime. I hated the way his work came back from Miss Beckworth, tick, tick, tick at every paragraph, and well done, Jamie, written at the bottom. I got lots of crosses, and you could try much harder, Charlotte, and tut, this is very shoddy work, and you can't fool me by making your writing enormous and widely spaced. You can only have spent 5 minutes on this work at the most. This is not good enough. I didn't want to be bothered with anything else but learning about the Victorians. I was starting to kind of enjoy writing my project. It was weird. I read stuff in books and then started writing, and it was as if this other girl entirely was scribbling it all down. The servant girl, Lottie, the nursery maid, she'd started to feel real, like I'd known her all my life. I knew her better than I even knew Lisa or Angela. I just picked up a pencil and all her thoughts came rushing out on the paper. I couldn't stand the thought of Miss Beckworth speckling it with her red bureau. It was private. At least we didn't have to hand our projects in till they were finished, and we had weeks yet. Of course, you know who had practically finished his project already. He didn't want to keep his project private. He kept flashing it around at every opportunity. He even took it into the canteen with him at dinner time. Well, he did that once. I just happened to choke on a fish finger and so needed an immediate drink of Coke, and in my haste I happened to tip the can over and the merest little spitty bit of froth spattered Jamie's precious folder. Only the outside, but he declared the posh marbled paper was all spoilt. The next day he carted his project to school, completely recovered with repro Victorian wrapping paper, all fat, frilly girls in bonnets and soppy boys in sailor suits. Yuck, yuck. And inside there was page after page of Jamie's neat blue handwriting with his own elaborate illustrations, carefully inked pictures of railway engines and mine shafts and factory looms, but he didn't have any train drivers or miners or factory hands because he can't draw people properly. I'll draw them in for you, Jamie, I offered. He turned down my generous offer. He didn't trust me. I wonder why. He had lots of proper pictures too, cut out of real old illustrated Victorian paper, and samples of William Morris wallpaper and photos of Victorian families standing up straight in their best clothes and real Victorian coins carefully stuck in with sellotape. Jamie's file was bulging already. My notebook was small and slim, and there were still only a few pages of writing. "You haven't done much yet, Charlie," said Jamie, snatching it up and rifling through it. "Give it back," I said, trying to grab it. "Why have you done it in this funny pencil writing? What's all this stuff? It's like a diary." "Well, I do not think Charlotte is a suitable name for a servant." "What are you on about?" said Jamie, holding it just out of my reach. "Don't you dare read it," I said, and I gave him such a smack on the head, he dropped my book instantly. "Ow! What did you do that for?" he gasped, clutching his head. "I warned you," I said, clutching my book to my chest. "You're mad. If you weren't a girl, I'd sock you straight back," said Jamie. One side of his face was bright red and the shape of my hand. There were tears in his eyes. I felt a bit worried. I hadn't meant to hit him quite as hard as all that. "You can try hitting me back, but I wouldn't advise it," I said. "Just stop messing about with my private stuff, right? It's just your Victorian project, for goodness sake. And you're doing it all wrong. Not a bit the way Miss Beckworth said." "I'm doing it my way," I said. "You'll get into trouble." "See if I care," I said. Miss Beckworth came into the classroom just then. She gave us all one quick glance and then fixed her gaze on Jamie. "What's the matter with you, James?" she said. I held my breath. It looked as if I was in trouble right that minute. I expected Jamie to blab. He looked as if he were going to. But then he shrugged and shook his head. "Nothing's the matter, Miss Beckworth," he said. I was amazed and even more astonished when Miss Beckworth didn't pursue it. She just raised her eyebrows as if to say, "You can't kid me." Then she sat down at her desk and started the lesson. Jamie started working right away, one cheek still scarlet. I watched him for a while. I struggled with myself. Then I leaned towards him. He flinched, as if he was scared I might slap him again. "Why didn't you say I slapped you?" I whispered. Jamie blinked at me nervously. "I'm not a sneaky telltale," he said. "Well, thanks," I mumbled. He didn't say anything back, but his other cheek was red too. So perhaps Jamie isn't 100% revolting and disgusting and infuriating, just 99%, but as if I'd ever sit chewing my nails waiting for his phone call. Nobody rang, not a single soul required the services of the strong, reliable schoolgirl. "Why don't you ring him?" said Joe, still doubly deluded. But the next day, Miss Pease from downstairs waylaid her as she was stumbling back from her morning shift at the supermarket. "Yes, Miss Pease wanted a little word about you, Charlie," said Joe, hands on her hips. "If she's nagging on about my music again, she's nuts. I keep it turned down so soft I can barely hear it myself. She just have ears like Dumbo's," I said, munching toast. Joe snatched half of it from my plate. "Here, spare a crumb for your poor hard-working mother," she said. "I'm starving." "So am I. You make your own. I've got to go to school." "Yes, well, you can wait a minute. Miss Pease says you've been soliciting." "I've been what?" I said. "Well, that's the word she used," said Joe. She was trying to sound stern, but she looked as if she might giggle any minute. "Yes, that's what she said. I really must bring this to your attention, Josephine. Charlotte has been soliciting." Joe's voice wobbled. I chuckled tentatively. It was a mistake. "No, it's not funny, Charlie. What have you been playing at? Posting all these little letters in people's flats offering to do work? I was wanting to help out." "Oh, Charlie, you are a nutter. Miss Pease is right for once in her long and boring life. You can't advertise yourself like that, especially when there are such loonies around. Some weird guy might have read about this little schoolgirl wanting work and get some terrible ideas. I'm not little, I'm big and strong, but I take your point. Still, you don't have to fuss. No one's phoned, not a single sausage, and after all that money I spent on photocopying, it's daft. The whole idea was to make a bit of money. Don't worry, that's my job, and anyway, it has worked in a way. Miss Pease says she's got a job for you." "Really?" I tried to feel pleased, but Miss Pease is such a pain. She's the sort of old lady who pats you on the head like a puppy dog and relentlessly asks you how old you are as if you might have aged 5 years since the last time you told her a week ago. Still, work is work. Only this work was worse than most. You'll never guess what she wanted me to do. Read to her. I don't really like reading aloud at the best of times. I don't like hearing my voice go all silly and showing off. And that's when I can pick and choose my own book. Miss Pease wanted me to read her library book, one of those large big print books that make your arms ache when you hold them up. My arms ached, my back ached, my head ached, my throat ached, my entire body was in ache overdrive after I read to Miss Pease for a whole hour. It was this terrible stupid story about some dippy woman who kept being pursued in the desert by this total nutcase in a striped nightie. Well, that's what he was wearing on the book jacket. Instead of telling him to get lost sharpish, the heroine simpered and zoomed into the sand. I kid you not, and Miss Pease obviously adored this utter rubbish. She sat back literally licking her chops. Mind you, that might have been because of all the Cadbury's milk tray she was eating. She got through a good half of the box. Of course I'd offer you one, Charlie dear, but you can't really read with your mouth full, can you? She said. I can try, I said hopefully. She thought I was joking, and I thought she was joking when she handed over my wages for the reading session. Here you are, dear, she said, fumbling in her purse. She handed me a 10-pence piece. I stared at it. Had she mistaken it for a pound coin? Even so, what a totally mingy rate of pay. Pop it in your money box, dear, said Miss Pease, and come back and read to me tomorrow. Not flipping likely. I was dead depressed and annoyed when Jo just laughed and found it funny. But she was in a good mood because she'd got herself another job cleaning this big posh house 3 days a week from 10 to 12. 3 jobs, she said, and she sent out for pizza with 3 extra toppings to celebrate. You'll exhaust yourself, I said. What with getting up at 5 and doing the supermarket and then looking after the silly little sprog in the afternoons. I'll be okay, and this new job's a doddle. The house is big, but they keep it very tidy. She's ever so worried about the idea of employing another woman to do her dirty work. I bet she runs around with the vacuum before I get there. Where is it? I asked, my mouth drooling cheese fronds. Oxford Terrace, said Jo. I stared at her, so shocked that my half of the pizza slipped out of my fingers onto the floor. I didn't care. I wasn't hungry anymore.